Well, thank you. Welcome to our little community here. Thanks for being here. A lot of people, I got a lot of feedback ahead of time, said they were excited to hear from you. So anyway, I'm going to, Molakides, how do you say your last name? I know I probably butchered it. How do you pronounce that?
Molakides.
Molakides. Okay. All right. And you go by Survival Chick, I think is a handle you have on Instagram.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it. I just kind of reading the bio, and it was basically said it was kind of a city person, city gal that decided to go out and live in the remote part of Northern California. Tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Well, it's an interesting story. I grew up in the peninsula in the Bay Area in between San Francisco and San Jose. My father and his brothers owned the largest beer distributorship in San Francisco that I grew up working at and thought I was going to take over. And I wasn't into camping or anything outdoors growing up. I liked to go shopping and have nice dinners. So in the 90s, my mother was very, very Christian, born again, and she would purchase properties with the intention of creating Christian retreat centers. So the land I'm on right now, she actually bought in the 90s. And we all thought she was crazy. It's off grid, 3 hours from the Bay Area, half an hour of a small windy road to even get here. She was a little Korean woman from Korea trying to drive her little Mercedes coming up here. So she found this place, bought it. It was so remote. She ended up getting a caretaker for it and found another property closer to home to do her retreat center. But this property just sat. I came once, I think when I was 20, and no one cared about it. So that's kind of the backstory of this property. And then my father in my mid-20s, him and his brothers sold the beer business. Someone came in and offered 10 million more than it was worth, and his brothers wanted to sell. So all of a sudden I'm 25 and I have to figure out what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I moved to Los Angeles right before the subprime mortgage crashed. Was working there in mortgages, and I got really into health though. I was going to farmers markets and reading about herbs. And there was this website called naturalnews.com. I don't know if you know who Mike Adams is. And he would interview different creators of products for alternative health and things like that. And he got type 2 diabetes when he was 30. And that's what made him get off the sad standard American diet and realize, oh my God, something's going on with our food. So he would talk about the FDA and different things and laws that were, foods that were legal, but he was showing how they could be dangerous. So this one interview he did with this guy who had a product that was a continuation of Dr. Maynard Murray. Have you ever heard of that name? Or Sea Energy Agriculture?
I have not. I've heard of Doug Adams, but I haven't heard of the other ones.
Okay, so this article talking about Dr. Maynard Murray is what changed my life and started my path to come here. So it was about sea energy agriculture. Dr. Maynard Murray was an ear, nose, and throat doctor in the 30s and 40s. And he was on the East Coast, and his patients were just starting to get cancer. And he would walk to the docks and think about, what to do. And he asked this one fisherman who fished the Grand Banks for 40 years, he said, what kind of diseases do fish get? And the guy said, I've never actually seen a sick fish. So this doctor started wondering what was unique about the ocean. He found out that river trout got cancer, but ocean trout didn't. And so what he learned is that the ocean itself, the seawater, has every natural element known to man, the non-radioactive ones, the first 90 or 92 that they say. And what he learned, he traveled on a boat for years. I mean, he found a beached whale and its offspring and took the pituitary gland, sent it to a lab and said, tell me the difference. And the lab came back and said, these two could have come from the same animal. I mean, you have a mother having the same young, there was no disease in the ocean. So the animals were swimming in their own pharmacopoeia of their toolbox of the elements of life, the 90 natural elements. And when we have everything we need to catalyze enzyme functions and things like that, we can be in, somewhat pristine health. So when I read about this And he said there were over 250,000 DNA replications that couldn't take place every day because we're deficient in these minerals. So then I started going on this journey of what is it with these trace elements? How come we don't hear about it? You know, there's what, 50 or 60 that we know what they do for humans of the 90 natural ones. And in agriculture, there's only 21 elements you can list on a fertilizer bottle saying that it's plant food. It's because us humans haven't figured out yet what every single other element does, so we can't say it's a plant food. So anyway, I contacted this company in Florida that was a continuation of Dr. Maynard Murray's teachings. What they found was that if you took clean diluted seawater and gave it to plants, it was a perfect solution of all 90 elements. That was a buffet for plants to let them pick and choose what they needed. And it was a plant nutrient. So I flew out to Florida with the tape recorder. And I said, you know, I'm really passionate about health. And I can't believe that our soils are so deficient and farmers nowadays are only putting back NPK. And actually, I want to say one more thing. So at one point, the ocean used to cover every aspect of this earth. When they went to the highest point of Mount Everest, there were seashells engraved in the mountain. And due to asteroids or different things, the earth has shifted. But because of that, at one point, every single piece of land was covered from the ocean. Have you heard that before?
Well, I know that, you know, significant parts of the world were underwater, and, you know, the oceans have shifted, and we've had tremendous changes in our topography. I mean, I guess at one point we were, you know, kind of like the surface of the moon before we had an atmosphere, and then we were covered in volcanic material. And so we've had all kinds of dramatic geographic changes throughout the history of the, you know, 4 billion years that the planet is. So yeah, I mean, I know that much of the United States was underwater at one point. So I don't know about, I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't know about 100% of the surface of the earth being water at one point. Maybe that's true or
Well,
not.
just in the whole history of
Sure.
oops, hold on. I don't know. I thought,
Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
things have shifted. Certainly, some things that are now mountainous and above water are now were previously below water for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so, you know, humans used to be nomadic. We would farm and then move, farm and then move. And then, you know, then we started the whole monoculture of farming. And, you know, every single plant picks up a different set of elements in the ground. Farmers have realized now that's why we need to do crop rotation, because it's like a buffet. Or when we farm, we're strip mining the land. If we're doing corn, it's taking those same 46 elements, whatever corn needs to get out of the land. And so now I've learned about crop rotation. I also learned after World War II, there were all these spent munitions, petroleum left over after the war, and people have discovered, oh, guess what? It's a great fertilizer. And that's when they started pushing the NPK methodology. And that's how we got into this mess when we're not, you know, for the masses, they're not really using different things from the ocean. Okay, I'm getting off track. So what got me here? So I flew to Florida for this company that sold a product, and I had this grandiose idea that I was going to sell fertilizer to farmers, and I was going to put the nutrition back in food. This product has all 90 elements in the perfect inorganic form for plants to pick up. It can be certified for organic production because it's not processed, it's not synthetic, but the form of this product is inorganic, which is what plants need their minerals to come in. When we put manure down on the ground or anything technically organic from the chemical standpoint, we rely on the soil microbes to break down that organic matter into the atomic ionic forms. And then we put water in the ground, and then the water, being polar, has those elements stick to it. And then the plant drinks that water and gets their food. So that's how plants need their food. The chemistry of seawater is already in the perfect form, inorganic, ionic for plants. It's almost like an IV or shooting plants up. So ever since the onset, ever since commercial or conventional agriculture started to get really big after World War II, we've seen the rise of cancer and all these other degenerative diseases, right? So what is going on with that is we're lacking the elements in our food, and farmers are mainly putting back NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And the same thing goes for our animals. Dr. Maynard Murray found out that, you know, cows are one of the biggest animals we have. And what do they eat? They can eat just grass and be healthy. But what is the mineral content of that grass, right? We eat. If the cows are deficient and the grass doesn't have all 90 elements, the cow can be deficient. Okay, so I flew to Florida with the tape recorder and I said, I want to sell this in California. I know nothing about farming, but I can learn anything. And I sat for 5 days with him and learned about agriculture. He talked about books. I came home. I just transcribed that whole week and bought every single book he said to buy. And I taught myself agriculture. So in 2009, I moved home from Los Angeles and my father was my investor. And I started my own fertilizer company. And I would go to trade shows, the World Ag Expo, sit there in a booth and talk to farmers all day. And I would say, what do you grow? What problems do you have? 10 years ago, trace elements was snake oil. Everyone thought I was freaking crazy. But farmers really wanted to buy from another farmer. They'd ask me, what do you farm? And I said, well, I have 20 fruit trees. And they're like, try 2,000. And so, I kept thinking, wow, like this is really hard. And then a year and a half into the fertilizer company, my mom has a massive stroke. She's paralyzed on the right-hand side. She can't speak. She has a tracheostomy, a feeding tube, and her care was put into my hands. So for 2 years, I took care of her. And it was crazy to see the sickest people on earth. They were giving these tube feeding formulas. And I was at Stanford Hospital and I read the tube feeding formula. And I told the doctor, this is crap that I wouldn't even feed my dog. And you call this food, right? So I made it another mission to bring her home and to completely do her whole nutrition. I did everything bolus through a syringe. I weaned her off of the tube feeding formulas. Unfortunately, still after 2 years, her brain never recovered. And I remember telling her one day, even though she couldn't communicate, I said, you know what, you've tried everything. I think it's time to go. And she actually got pneumonia a month later and passed. But when I first got into ag that first year, it was her dream for me to revive this walnut orchard that I'm sitting in right now. She kept telling me, she had a really strong accent. She said, Dori, go do the walnuts, right? Because finally here I am, a city girl in agriculture, going to farms. Because the seawater product I sold wasn't only for plants. It could be used as a trace element for animals. And I'll go back into that later. So I said, Mom, I'm selling stuff in Tulare. I'm going down south. I can't farm. And she always wanted goats and chickens. And so when she had the stroke, her property was put into a trust and I was the manager. So I came up here for the first time in 10 years. And I said, oh my God, because I knew once I got into selling fertilizer, sitting at those farm conferences, speaking to farmers, I knew I wanted to be a farmer. I knew the only way for me to know everything that was going to be in my food, start to finish, to hold myself accountable, is if I did it myself. So it's really unfortunate that it was after my mom passed, but after she passed, I had the time. And I put the fertilizer company on hold and I moved up here in 2013 and started farming. So that's what got me into this. But the survival chick part, I think it was after Fukushima. I kind of 2007, 8, when my whole health journey, learning about, fluoride in the water. Hitler used to put it in the concentration camps because it, what's the base of a Prozac pill? Fluoride. It like subdues you. So I just started learning about all these things and I was like, what the heck is going on? You go down that rabbit hole. And I was, kind of got into the conspiracy theories of this. And I was almost a conspiracy theorist of the food world. Why is raw milk banned in so many states when it's so therapeutic? I learned about Weston Price. Are you familiar with him?
I am. In fact, we just interviewed Sally Fallon from Weston Price just about 2
Oh,
weeks ago.
okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I've got all her books. And so let's see, where was I at? So when I started the company, okay, wait, hold on, I'm losing track of mine. Okay, so survival chick. So I started realizing that anything could happen at any time. I mean, solar flares, right? There's a about every 100 years, a solar storm from the sun that's natural that hits the earth. The last time the big one hit United States, the telegraph system was knocked out. We haven't had these type of grids that we have now. If a grid's knocked out, it takes 3 months to rebuild. It's almost like an EMP, and now we can be in a battle with another country and have an EMP attack, whatever. So I wasn't trying to be paranoid, but I realized, especially after Fukushima and it was poisoning the ocean, I said, you know what, something can happen at any time. And I'm in this city. I don't know how to make my own food. I don't know how to get water. I don't know anything. And then I started turning into a little survival chick. I mean, at 30 years old, 10 years ago, I wanted to buy guns. I got certified in pistol training and rifle training. I wanted to get a dirt bike. All my friends dirt bike growing up. And I said, I don't want a dirt bike. I don't want to hurt myself. But then I said, how am I going to get out of the city? I need a dirt bike. I need to know how to siphon gas. I started learning about GoPack. I mean, just prepper to the max. When I get into something, I really buy every book and I get into it. So that's where the survival chick aspect comes from. And of course, part of being a survival chick is living off grid. And I have to admit, though, I didn't choose this off-grid life. It was family property that happens to be off-grid. Now, I think anyone who wants to be into survivalism should know how to live off-grid and have that set up. But honestly, if I could choose, I would choose to have power. It definitely is not as easy not having power. But that's kind of a history of that. So 2013, I move up here with a boyfriend I had at the time who was an arborist. And I said, teach me how to use a chainsaw and let's revive this orchard. So slowly from 2013 to now, I bought chickens, I bought goats, I would buy books on something, YouTube it, start with a different animal every time, see what I liked. The sheep I got in 2015, I just wanted, I wanted to have my own grass-fed lambs, and I wanted to have enough where I can sell to friends and family as well. Oh, I also had a rabbitry. That's really big for survivalism. Rabbits produce really fast. And so I had a rabbitry at one point. I had pigs a few years ago, and which I'm going to bring back. The pigs are phenomenal, but they're big rooters. I mean, they go around and they really damage the land. And yeah, slowly after the years, I revived the orchard. I bought a walnut shaker. I mean, everything I do up here is harder because we're so remote. What's really unique about this walnut orchard is it's non-irrigated. It's dry farmed. So it's as sustainable as you can get. It's 60 years old. Most of the big walnut companies now would actually tear these trees down and start over. But I want to work with what I have. And about 20% of these trees are black walnuts. A lot of people try to tell me, can you sell me that wood? I want to make a gun stock. What are you going to do with the black walnuts? Because no one really produces or, there's no shelling companies, I think, in the whole US now that do black walnuts. But I found out that black walnut tincture is highly medicinal and it's anti-parasitic and antiviral. So that's kind of the basis of, I guess, how I got to this point now. I don't know if there's anything else you want to know.
No, that's fascinating. It's just kind of a fascinating journey, and it's kind of interesting stuff. One of the things I noticed, and going through some of your social media stuff, I know you've got pictures of, you're up there skinning animals, and slaughter and skinning your own animals. And some people find that to be disturbing or something for some reason. And you got, I guess, is it goats that you have right now?
I have miniature goats. They are my pets. I know a lot of people eat goats. I don't eat the goats. When I first came here, star thistle was rampant in this orchard, and I wanted to be organically certified. A previous owner had sprayed herbicide, the Roundup, which Roundup toxicity can eat away at your gut lining. And so star thistle, no one wants to eat star thistle except goats. I mean, I don't know if you know what it is. It's very pokey and very bad. So I first purchased goats because 30 acres is the walnut orchard. It's a lot to mow, a lot to keep up. So I bought the goats to keep down the star thistle, and within 2 years, I completely eradicated it. So the goats are just for pets and for mowers. The sheep are the ones that we eat. And that's always been a controversial subject. And it's still hard for me. I'm an animal lover. And a lot of people will get mad that I say that if I eat sheep. And this is a big ethical question. And I have some friends that are big. I rarely eat meat, but they still eat meat sometimes. They just love animals so much, and they get mad at me. They're like, "Why do you have so many sheep? Just do the ones for yourself." But I said, I want to be able to share this with friends and family, and I think it's really important for people to see where their food comes from. We're so disconnected. We go to a store and buy meat, and no one even thinks about what it went through. I'm a big supporter, and I want to promote smaller farms, not only because it's healthier for you. We are what you eat. If an animal is fed a grain GMO diet their whole life, that GMO cell mutation can permeate in the cow meat. We don't know what type of mutations are going to come from GMOs, which are a mutation that we're doing. And what's cancer? It's a mutation of the cell. So, and I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Zach Bush. He talks about how, how the animal is raised, and when they're constantly stressed, they're releasing these hormones that are being put into the meat that we're eating. And again, more importantly, you are what you eat, and that animal is what they eat. So what I want to do, or what I am doing, is I want to connect people and educate them and tell them, when you're not buying from a small provider, and you're buying from an animal that was raised in a factory farm, that animal had no quality of life. It was stressed its entire life. It's fed crap that is making the meat less nutritious. There was a customer I had, I was selling my product. Again, I sold the seawater product to not only farmers for crops, but for animal owners. This company, I'm not going to say the name, is the second largest producer of eggs in the world. If he had a hen house or some egg thing go down, your prices were going up. He did private label for Horizon, Trader Joe's, all of it. And I don't know how I got a meeting with him. And he said, they run layers 2 years, chickens. And then the egg production drops off and they just scrap them. And there's 40,000 birds in a house. So he told me he owned 1 million birds himself, and he contracted out 1 million birds. You can own your own house, and then you get the chicks and the feed from them, and then you sell back the eggs. That's how it works. So he told me, he said, I have a new conveyor belt system, and the eggs are breaking too much. The eggs shells are too weak. He said, so my chicken doctor came in and tried to give more calcium. Well, every element has a twin. I think calcium strips from magnesium. We try to play God. We want to give animals and things a certain thing instead of letting them get it naturally from the food in the ground. So he said, I'd like to get the eggshells stronger. And I said, well, this trace mineral product will make everything better. I said, it'll lower your mortality rate, make the eggshells stronger. Your chickens will eat less. If a cow or an animal is eating grass that has all 90 elements, it has everything it needs, that cow will eat probably a quarter amount of the grass than another cow eating mineral deficient grass. When we eat something and there's no minerals in it, let's say fast food or something, we're so hungry again, 30 minutes later, our body got full for a second, and then they said, wait, there's no minerals in here. Let's keep eating. So anyway, that's why I was telling this chicken guy, hey, food consumption will go down. So he said, it'd be a miracle, but at 1 year into farming for chickens, they all molt. That means they lose their feathers and they don't lay eggs. He goes, for 1 month, it cost me $1 per bird, which is $1 million, to house these birds. If I could blow through molting, that would be amazing. So we did a 2-year trial for one whole set of chickens, and the chickens blew through molting just from these 90 elements. And then we did another 2 years, and the chickens blew through molting. So I'm bringing this up, talking about, I don't know why I did bring this up, but talking about how the 90 elements, when presented, things can reach its genetic potential. So let's go back to here. That's what I'm doing here on the farm. I was talking about this because of factory farming and the animals and what they ate. So let me just bring it back to the butchering, and let's bring it back to actually like how I found you. So over the years, it's been really controversial with me raising meat. We've actually had a couple vegans that have lived here, and I'm pretty proud that I've been able to sway their views. You know, sometimes a vegan or a non-meat eater can just say, there's no questions asked, what you're doing is wrong, it's never okay. And what I say is, people are still going to eat meat. We can't start and just say, hey, just don't eat meat. How about let's ethically start eating meat, which it's a win-win for win-win for our environment, regenerative agriculture, win-win for our health. The meat has this is why I brought up, actually, I'll get back, the chicken farmer. This guy told me in our meeting, the only meat he would eat was from Uruguay. And I said, why? He goes, it had the same omega levels as fish, this meat. And I said, where were they eating? He goes, oh, on this side of a mountain. I said, was a mountain a volcano? And I go, yes. So then we found out the grass they were eating was deposited with the volcanic eruption from before that came, you know, when volcanoes erupt, it's seafloor. 90 elements. It all goes back to 90 elements. Those cows had the same omega levels, their meat, as fish because they had ate grass that had all 90 elements. Okay, coming back to here. So the vegans that I've had lived here, what they did realize is that people are going to eat meat. So we can't just say don't eat meat. What we can start saying is let's give the animals the best possible life they could ever have ethically. And then when it's time for us to put them down, have a humane way of doing it. And they were in agreement that, hey, if it's going to be done and it's going to be done, this is the best way to do it. So I actually had a vegan living here, knowing that we raise these animals for meat. And then online still always, I mean, there was a time when I didn't even, I was scared to post stuff. And I'm very raw on my Instagram. I mean, I'd like to just show it all. I'll show the whole butchering show, but I'm constantly, you know, I'm getting flagged. The other day I butchered a couple lambs and I didn't even show the killing part. I just showed the after. But it's pretty intense and people don't realize, you know, even when you kill an animal ethically, I mean, we give a little gunshot right here, a 22, and then I have to run up and slice its neck deep. And as soon as you do that, blood squirting everywhere. And I still almost cry, sometimes do. And I sit with the animal while they're bleeding out. And I'm just like, I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You know, so in that moment, I'm sad and I'm kind of nervous. But then after, it's like, all right, it's done. I thank the animal for its life. And I just get to work. And then, you know, not that I don't laugh because I just killed the animal, but if I'm having a butchering class with people, we're kind of joking around, laughing about certain things. And I like to have fun with it. So I teach butchering classes here, primarily chickens. I have a lot more and they're easy to do. I'm starting to do more butchering classes with the lambs. Yeah. I'm kind of all over the place. I'm sorry. There was so much I want to talk about. I didn't even make any notes.
No, that's okay. It's whatever you feel like talking about. It's great. It's what is are you? I mean, are you able? And you're off grid. You raising your own food. Are you largely independent? Do you feel like you could survive without any input out from the outside world at this point?
Oh, I could survive 6 months here. Right now, if something were to happen, I'm good for 6 months. You know, as far as what I need to get from my well is an automatic, or not automatic, some sort of manual hand pump. You still have to think, okay, let's say something happens and we have a solar flare. Well, that'll still take out all my solar equipment. It's electrical. Unless I have a Faraday cage and something completely shielding things, I'm not even gonna have, my generators aren't gonna work. My solar's not gonna work. So I've got the animals. I have thousands and thousands of seeds I can grow. I've got greenhouses I can grow in the winter. I can grow in the summer. I just have to, and you know what? I have a natural spring right back down here I can collect water from. So yeah, I could probably live a year right now if something were to happen. just because of all my animals and food, and I have water.
Right, sure. And I assume that you know, you don't have any qualms eating meat. You don't you're not concerned about it being a health problem. Is that fair to say?
Oh, so okay. A buddy of mine who's 32, all our 20s, oh, organics BS. Like it doesn't mean anything. And well, here, I I've been in agriculture. So this is like, I'm coming back now. When I started the fertilizer company 10 years ago, I wanted to teach everyone about the minerals and how we're all deficient and everything I learned. And then I started farming. You know, a lot of people didn't want to listen to me because I wasn't a farmer. So now I have the experience, 8 years, and I'm coming back full circle. So when my friend said, you know, organic doesn't mean anything, when I was in agriculture, I learned about GMO seeds. I went to GMO seed farms. I saw the bacteria soil life completely dead. When you spray Roundup, it kills everything. But this friend was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 29 years old. And he said he didn't want to take the insulin shots as little as he could. He primarily ate meat, and he was a hunter as well. He was eating only meat and went back in, and the doctor said, your cholesterol levels are through the roof. And he realized, okay, you know what? I'm eating factory farmed meat and not thinking about where the meat came from. He started eating wild hunted meat and only grass-fed meat. Came back in 6 months, or not even 6 months, a few months later, his cholesterol levels were back to normal. I told him, give me those test results. That is a testimony. I need to show people you're eating primarily meat. I mean, he watches his carbs. He's like, well, you know, vegetables even have carbs. He just eats very, very little vegetables and mostly meat because he's a type 1 diabetic and doesn't want to take insulin and rarely has to. And so, and with Weston Price, I mean, he's proved it. You know, animal products and meat, we need those things. And people can argue. You know, there's some people who can say I don't need it. There are probably some people with their own body chemistry. They'll survive. They'll be fine, decently healthy without it. But there's many people who are sick, who need the fats and need the things from meat. And again, I want to stress that it's super important to know how that animal was raised and what that animal ate. I mean, that is the difference between high cholesterol and normal cholesterol.
One thing, well, I mean, some people would point out a confounder that, you know, grass finished animals tend to be leaner in general. You know, they just don't have as much fat in there, and so that might be one of the differentiating factors. I know there's a trend towards, and I've talked to a number of regenerative agriculture animal producers that are looking at, you know, older animals. You know, they raise a cow. It's the typical commodity beef is 16, 18 months to the slaughter floor. And then even grass finished animals tend to be 24 months, maybe 32 months typically when we're talking about cows. But these guys are keeping them, they're getting animals that are 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and they're able to put more fat on those animals. And so there may be a
7
difference.
years, wow.
Yeah, there's some, you know, what they do is they take like the mama cows from cow calf operations, and after they've had multiple calves, you know, and they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years and they can't calve anymore, they bring them back onto pasture, they fatten them up, and they find that they end up have a higher fat content, which from a flavor standpoint, many people prefer. And it's also done, you know, kind of in a regenerative fashion. So it's kind of an interesting way to do cattle, but it's I think there's a, you know, certain number of cows that you can do that way.
Well, and you know, if you want a higher fat content cow, I can imagine that, you know, there's a lot of grass-fed growers that finish on grain. But again, I think it is important to figure out, was that grain non-GMO? You know, that's what's scary about GMOs. We're mutating cells, and I mean, in theory, it sounds fabulous. I mean, you're genetically manipulating a seed to withstand, you know, certain, maybe, I don't know, pest pressure, heat tolerances. You know, you're making this perfect thing to grow in an environment, but you know, we're mutating something, and that will cause additional mutations in us when we eat those plants. And unfortunately, the biggest known crops that are GMO are Roundup Ready, Roundup Ready soybeans, and there's soy in almost everything. So everything is being sprayed with this glyphosate. And then what's really crazy is how nature always prevails. I mean, when I first got into ag 10 years ago, I don't know how many super weeds there are now, but 10 years ago, there were actually 21 weeds that had grown a resistance to Roundup. So farmers were spraying and dumping all these chemicals, and there were still 20 weeds coming up, and then they got to add 2,4-D and then start doing mixes of other herbicides. Nature will always prevail and find a way. So we need to find a way, which is what regenerative agriculture is about, is to work with nature. And so I'm actually, I took a hiatus from the fertilizer business all these years. I had to get the farming under my belt. Farmers wanted to buy from a farmer. I'm actually going to relaunch my sea mineral product, 90 Elements, and I'm going to be selling it to farmers to put back in the soil. Let's let the plants pick and choose from the buffet of all 90 elements. There's so many enzyme functions that can't take place because they're missing a trace element. I mean, people even think, okay, we think about lithium. Would lithium be a fertilizer product you would think of? When you go to, if you have someone that's bipolar, they treat heavy bipolarism with lithium. So you have to think lithium has to come naturally from somewhere. Lithium in the atomic form at the ultra trace elements that are levels that the seawater has it in can be beneficial. So that's why it's good to eat a diet of tons of different fruits and vegetables and different meats. Everything picks up different things. So I'm going to be selling this product to farmers. Let's give the plants the full buffet. Let's let that plant pick and choose genetically what it needs to reach its genetic potential. If you have a tomato, chefs love farmers who use sea minerals. You take a tomato that has reached its genetic potential. Let's say, I think a tomato can pick up 56 elements of the 90. That tomato would be the reddest it could be. It would be the most aromatic. It would smell the best. When look, smell, and taste of a vegetable, if it's reaching all those high levels, that's indicative of the mineral content that it has. Again, you give something the full toolbox of 90 elements, that plant can start catalyzing different enzyme functions and put out as much lycopene as possible. Most of the food in stores right now are virtual food, NPK, nitrogen. Nitrogen is like a steroid shot. It gets the plant to grow really, really big and fast, but then your tomato might be mealy and it's devoid of minerals. So we're sitting here eating this vapid tomato, thinking we're eating vegetables, we're doing so good, when there's barely any minerals in there. And you can taste it, or you actually can't taste it, is the problem. So this product also is great for putting it in animal water. Animals and humans, we need our minerals and our vitamins to come in an organic form, carbon-based, right? Plants are opposite. Plants need their minerals to come in an inorganic state, right? Inorganic and organic, organic is a misnomer. We think of organic farming as, no pesticides and things like that. But in organic chemistry, what plants actually need to eat are inorganic elements. That's why I was saying before, we put the manure down, we put the sea kelp down. We have to rely on the microorganisms in the soil to break that down into the atomic form. So, so we're all deficient, and it's really hard. There's not that many farmers using the 90 elements. If I were to drink this seawater product, it would only be 5% bioavailable to my system because it's inorganic. I'm a carbon being. I need my minerals. I'm sure you've heard this too. If you're going to buy vitamin pills, they have to be plant-based. You go get the GNC minerals or pills at the store, in and out of your body in the toilet, right? They're inorganic from ground up rocks or however they synthetically created. So it's really important that we get most of our nutrition from carbon things. But because we're so deficient, if I were to put a little bit of this diluted seawater into my water, just to like 25 parts per million, my body still can get 5% of those ultra deficient trace elements. And same as animals. Animals actually, with ruminants, they have 4 chambers in their stomach. Animals can actually have a higher bioavailability to inorganic minerals, such as like, cows, or they're probably at 20%. So there's tons of farmers out there that put sea minerals in the water for their livestock to make sure that they're fixing any sort of trace element deficiencies. Yeah, so that, okay, so I've come full circle all these years. Now I've shifted and I've been farming for 8 years, and I'm ready to get back out there and promote this product just because I'm really passionate about it, and health is really important to me. And I feel like my life calling is to be an educator and a teacher. I love helping people. I love explaining things. I love learning and then teaching. So that's what I want to do now. Is I think that I can come back after 8 years and relaunch this product. And now farmers will listen to me because I've been farming for 8 years. I mean, I'm sure there's bigger, ranchers and farmers, but 30 acres of walnuts is a lot. And right now I think I'm at 130 sheep. I have 60 goats. And I've been doing it. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm starting a nonprofit learning center here. I should also note, people who follow me on Instagram can see. So I started a page called Girls Gone Off Grid. I was a marketing major in school, and I realized, okay, I have all these great products that I knew I wanted to sell, the fertilizer and trace element product, which humans could take too. I knew I was going to sell that again one day. I knew I have these black walnut trees that can make black walnut tincture. And I wanted to educate the world. I want to teach everyone about food and connect them. And I said, okay, well, to do that, I need to have a platform. How am I going to get out there? Who's even going to want to listen to me? So people are always intrigued with me being a woman living this life. Being off grid is different than any farm. This farm is unique. We're in the middle of a freaking forest. I mean, I'm 3,000 feet elevation. None of the farmers at the farming conferences or the walnut shows can believe I have a walnut orchard up here. I mean, it's really crazy. So I had to learn how to use a chainsaw and split wood. I mean, the list is endless. And people are always blown away, like, wow, a young girl is doing this stuff. So I said, okay, sex sells, but I don't want to be too sexy. I mean, it's just a little. So I said, okay, I'm going to start Girls Gone Off Grid, which was kind of like a spoof from Girls Gone Wild. I don't know if you remember that whole college thing before. And we're not going to be naked, but in the summer, I just wanted to depict what we naturally do. It's very hot up here in the summer. So we're in our bikinis. And we have some girls that used to come from Florida. They like to wear thongs. We're all very comfortable with our bodies. And it's usually just girls here. So we'd be farming in our bikinis. And if it's really hot and there's no guys here, we don't want tan lines. We'll just be naked. But if guys are here, we put our clothes on. Okay. So there was an interview done on me in December of 2019. And this guy, I thought he wrote for Maxim magazine. So I was thinking he was going to be there. He did an interview over email. I answered all these questions. And I go to Bali last year. Wait a minute. What year are we in? Yes, last year, right before COVID. And turned out the article that he wrote was in the Daily Mail, which is this worldwide tabloid publication. So I wake up my first night in Bali, different time difference. My phone's blowing up. My cousin's like, "You're famous." And I was like, "What?" I read this article and I'm like, oh my God, babes, buds, and bullets. I mean, it was showing my girlfriends wearing thong bikinis in the garden. And then me with my AR-15 like this, my gun. And, there was pictures of cannabis and stuff in there. And I'm like, oh my God, cannabis and guns. do not mix. What the hell is going on? I was like freaking out. But from that day on, I got 10,000 followers on Girls Gone Off Grid. I had tons of different production companies calling me. We want to do a docuseries or a reality show on you. Your story is amazing. I had the London Times contact me and say, hey, and that's a picture you guys used for your, meet the VIP guest. That was a photographer the London Times sent out. They're like, we want to do a piece on you. I'm going off grid. So this is going to lead to what happened last summer. So COVID hit and we didn't really get the shows we wanted to at the time because they were mostly in England. And then last summer, there were some plants here, and the local sheriff, did a flyover. So the laws here have changed in California. It's legal. Marijuana is legal, cannabis, but each county can pick and choose what their ordinance could be. The ordinance in my county is you can grow 6 plants. That's it. Anything over that, you're in trouble. And so, I was thinking, okay, well, it's, pretty much legalized now, whatever. I mean, I can't go, I'm actually in a big court case right now. I can't go into too much of the details, but the sheriffs had flown over, saw some plants, looked up my name, the property name, and then must have found the articles. And they're reading all this stuff. They're looking at my Instagram. They're like, whoa, she's a big gun enthusiast. Is this some big dog? Well, July 15th last year, there was a raid on my property. I was actually at my fiance's house, thank God, sleeping. My friends were here. 70 men, helicopter, DEA, assault rifles, came on the property and conducted a raid with the warrant. And my poor friends were here for that. And so it just happened to be, it was on July 15th, which is the same day that my mother died in 2012. I knew when I moved up here that I wanted to start a learning center, and I got sidetracked year after year, getting sidetracked. I do believe that my mother had a part in this, right? You keep saying like, okay, if you're growing plants and you're doing other stuff, you're busy. I didn't have time to devote to what my true soul's purpose was. So we get this raid. My charges are, and I didn't know this is going to be federal or what. I mean, I've never been in trouble in my life. I'm a good girl. And so I go, they have the wrong person. They come here, guns blazing, DEA, again, 70 men, helicopter, come out. And they come here and they all were like, I talked to one of the sheriffs. I'm like, wow, this is a real farm. We got all these girls in their little bikinis, and we got over 100 lambs running around, a walnut orchard. Definitely it was not like any other raid they've ever done, ever. And so, my charges are, I have misdemeanors for cultivation and, possession with distribution, intent to sell. And then I actually have a felony gun charge on all my guns. Were 100% legal. I've owned them, for 8 years. I give shooting courses, but there was an AR-15, which there were some parts that just changed a couple of years ago, and I didn't update them, and I was supposed to re-register on the assault rifle registry. Anyway, I'm dealing with that now. Once the court case is closed, I can really disclose more about it because I really want to share my experience on that. But this is leading to what's going on now. Hold on, the sun's kind of creeping over here. Even in my article on the Daily Mail, I talked about I'm starting a retreat center. COVID hit, and all this stuff was going on. And here I am saying, I said, look, I in the article, I said, I'm done growing. I'm focusing on the retreat center. And look what happened. COVID hit. I wasn't focusing on this. And you know what? I got in trouble. And I had said in the article, I thought I was done. So it was a big learning lesson. And I don't regret anything. I think everything happens for a reason. And this is now my story. And I meant to go through this court case, and I meant to figure all this out and even see how our judicial system is. It's crazy. It just, the whole everything. And so what I'm doing is I'm building a learning center here. It's going to be a nonprofit. I'm just racking my brain. I have no idea what to call this nonprofit. That's what's stopping me from creating this. And like, but I want it to even be bigger than here. I want here to be, people can come and they have, you know, I want to, if I'm not going to be teaching it, I can eat people, I'll hire professionals, yoga retreats, women's health. I mean, survivalism. In 2 weeks, we're having a survival course. This guy who's worked under Cody Lundeen, he's coming for 2 days and we're going all in the forest with 12 people, learning how to build shelters, survive, things like that. But I want to teach everything, animal husbandry, living off grid, everything here. And I hope to get the nonprofit big enough where I get millions of dollars, where I can start a grant foundation for people like me, people who grew up in the city, who didn't know a damn thing about farming. I'm not second, third generation. I got this big community to help me. I didn't know anything. I mean, I never even grew a plant before 2010 when I got into agriculture. I'd love to have a grant program where city slickers like me, husbands and wives who want to buy property and want to start a small farm, I want to have money for them first 6 months of a lease. I want to come up, you know, I was a business major. I'll come up with a business plan for them. Tell me what product, what crop, or what animal you want to raise. We'll tell you how to do it. We'll do a business plan. We'll help you with equipment. And the only thing they have to give back is they have to sell to their local community, right? We have to have smaller farms. So that's kind of the big dream and vision I have. And, you know, I'm talking to a production company now. It's looking really good to get a docuseries. They're going to just be documented, you know, life after the raid and picking up the pieces and creating this dream of this nonprofit retreat center. And so right now I'm putting together a little ad. I'm going to recruit 2 new girls gone off grid this year. They can be from anywhere in the world. They're going to come and volunteer. And that's another thing. You needed the nonprofit. I can't have volunteers unless you actually have it under a nonprofit. You can't have people working for you if you don't pay them. So that's what this year is going to be about. Finding these 2 girls, creating this regenerative farm oasis. I mean, I like to do a little bit of everything. Permaculture, biodynamic farming. I mean, there's so many different types, you know, Korean natural farming. I'm half Korean. And I have all these projects set up, a big vermicompost area, aquaponics. God, I can't even, I mean, I just have this whole list. So we're just going to bang it all out. And I think we're going to get this show, and that's going to help market and propel me, and kind of starting the journey all over again right now.
That sounds like fun. That sounds awesome. Unfortunately, I've got to run to another meeting here, but this has been really fascinating and educational. Can you tell us where to go to find more about you and how to support what you're doing, and any kind of other messages you'd like to get out there?
Yes, I would just say for now, Survival Chick on Instagram. I also have Kings Hill Ranch, which is my farm name, on Instagram, and Girls Gone Off Grid. I'm currently building my website right now for Kings Hill Ranch. So in the next month, you can check kingshillranch.com, and I'm going to have everything there as far as, you know, courses. I also have a tiny house I rent out on Airbnb. It's, I think, Kings Hill Ranch off-grid tiny house. People can come here, stay in the tiny house. And then again, I offer different courses, which will be available on the website.
Awesome. Well, Doris, has been wonderful. Good luck to you, and hopefully to hear more from you. And thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. Bye-bye now.
Okay, bye.